Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the brave ones who are still in the room and haven't left. We are here today to talk about safeguarding new technologies. You might wonder why I am moderating this panel. I'm not a journalist, as most of the moderators so far, but I'm the legal counsel and the chief of staff of the Special Secretary of Foresight in the Presidency of the Greek government. And our Secretariat issued recently this report, which is on Gen AI and Greece to 2030. It's the first report that's done with Foresight methodologies and talks about how the technology is evolved and how it's adapted in the society and how it's embraced by the society, the public sector and the private sector in Greece. We have 4 scenarios. There are some policy recommendations. It was presented to the Prime Minister in January, and we hope it's going to be the basis for Greece's national AI strategy. It was done with the Research Center Demokritos and EKE, the National Center for Social Research. And this is about Greece. We are here to talk about safeguarding new technologies all over the world. So we have with us Ms. Eugenia Bozou, who is Head of Government Affairs and Public Policy at Google Greece. We have Ms. Antonia Hmaidi, Senior Analyst of Science, Technology and Innovation Policy Team at Mercator Institute of Chinese Studies, and Ms. Dr. Ismini Kriari, who is an Emeritus Professor of Constitutional Law at the Panteion University of Social and Political Science, and also a member of the National Commission for Bioethics and Technoethics here in Greece. So let's start with the East. Let's talk a little about China. Do you see that there's a distance that separates China and the US to be really that big, especially in matters of regulation and the general attitude towards AI?
Yeah, thank you for having me, and thanks everyone for still being here. I think China and the US do share some concerns when it comes to regulating AI. Those are about transparency, about human-centeredness. It's unclear what that means. It's about algorithmic bias. These are really shared concerns. But fundamentally, there are so many differences. The first difference sort of pertains to what is actually the AI that should be regulated. In the US, there is now a really, really strict focus on generative AI, and on generative AI being the transformative technology. China also believes that AI is a transformative technology, but it doesn't believe that this is constrained to generative AI. It also looks at other forms of AI, especially industrial AI, to look at how can AI support the real economy. When we look at regulation, whenever we analyze Chinese regulations, we actually see 2 parts in there. One of these parts is the part that every one of us would like to agree to. It's about trustworthiness. It's about it should be recognizable that this is something that an AI generated. And then there's the other part that's about trustworthiness for the Chinese political system that we can't agree to. And lastly, maybe, the big concern that is coming from China right now is the idea that the US wants to restrict China's development in AI. China doesn't really, the US believes, at least as far as my understanding is, that because of China's civil-military fusion and because of the way China's system is set up to support its military, AI will be transformative to China's military. China also believes that, and China is fundamentally unwilling to discuss anything that would restrict it from using AI or from developing AI to use it in combat, which is one of the big problems that obviously the international community has whenever we discuss with China. We can agree on some general guidelines, some general grounds, like the Bletchley Declaration, but it is very, very difficult to come together because there's always this political stability is the most important, and there can't be any restrictions on China's development and use of AI.
Interesting. And as Ms. Holmgren just arrived, who is the 4th panelist and the Economic Counsel of the US Embassy in Athens, I don't know if we should grab him and ask him to answer a question right upon his arrival, or give him some time to...
No, that'd be fine. Sorry, I was out on a phone call.
That's fine. So
a little bit tardy.
We talked a little bit about China, and what about the US? Is without a doubt one of the most important centers for the development of artificial intelligence technology worldwide. Together with the EU, the US is also the forefront of challenges of the challenge to develop proper and reasonable regulation of AI technology. How has the US embraced this role so far?
Again, apologies to my fellow panelists that I was a little late. I don't know if the United States has embraced the role. We just sort of understand we need to play a role here. You know, the president in October 2023, established an executive order that establishes standards for safety, security, while also looking to protect Americans' privacy, advance equity and civil rights, and also stand up for sort of consumers and workers while being able to promote innovation and competition. I think what's important to note is our government has been working with private industry here. There's 15 companies that have come together to, advise us as policymakers as to, what are the sorts of rules of the game, so to speak. What we know is that if we're advancing regulation without having those conversations with the developers of the technology and the consumers of the technology, it's simply not going to work. As far as the second part of your question, we're working with our allies, the European Union, NATO, and other like-minded partners, on the basis of sort of common values as to how we develop these frameworks. But if it's just the quote-unquote West that's doing this, we're probably not going to be successful. So we're looking at other partners. Japan is one of them through the G7 Hiroshima process. UK, of course. India is playing a leading role in this, and then we're also looking at the United Nations to play a role. What we want is broad consensus as to what's the framework that we develop. Because if it's just a framework that looks imposed on, that the West is imposing on the world, it's probably not going to be particularly durable. A previous panelist was talking about the PRC, how they're looking to develop AI. That's something that we're obviously concerned about. And I think the other thing to know is AI is innovative, sort of, I think, hard for the layman, including myself, to understand. But we actually have frameworks to sort of tackle this regulatory problem, or I shouldn't say problem, challenge. Universal Declaration of Human Rights is one such sort of framework that we can look as we're developing AI. International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. There's a lot of things that we've already developed that I think we're looking at as sort of models that we can adjust to I don't want to say regulate, but also just sort of bring some order to what right now is sort of like what we would call in the States the Wild West. International, as broad a consensus as you can get that protects human rights and privacy, but also doesn't stifle innovation, because this is going to be a super, I think, useful tool as we move forward. So, thank you.
It's interesting that you mentioned the US, where it's the first adoption of the resolution unanimously from all of the members, so China and the US and Europe together. Let's move now a little bit to Greece. And we have with us Ms. Dr. Kriari, who is a professor and a member of the Commission of Ethics and Technoethics and Bioethics. And I think it's important to hear her thoughts on how the public sector can react on challenges of AI and Gen AI we are facing today.
Thank you very much. I think that the public sector in Greece, as in many other countries, has tried to adjust to the new developments and to the new challenges in many ways. One of them is by the creation of the Bioethics and Technoethics Committee, which deals with the issues of artificial intelligence. And about 2 months ago, we published our opinion on artificial intelligence in the sector of health, because we consider that health is a field where artificial intelligence is going to have disruptive results in all facets of health, in diagnosis, prognosis, prevention, therapy, in new pharmaceutical products, and in monitoring the results of health procedures. So, because of that, we studied the issue. We invited many experts from the private and the public sphere, and we published this opinion where we underline the importance of artificial intelligence in the health field and the challenges it poses and the measures that should be taken both in the field of ethics and deontology and in the field of governance, because some of the ethical principles which apply to artificial intelligence are the same as in the field of bioethics, the principles that are known as the principle of beneficence, of non-maleficence, of ethics, of justice, which means that if we have new methods, new medicaments and new therapies, they should be accessible to the largest possible public. But we also have some other principles which have to do with governance, especially because artificial intelligence poses some new issues which have to be dealt with. One of them is the fact that artificial intelligence works with data. So one must have many data. These data are collected by individuals. That means you have personal and very sensitive data, and there you have to protect the main rights of the individuals. You have to protect their privacy, you have to protect their autonomy, and you have to safeguard these data so that they would not jeopardize the individual rights. One is that principle. The other principle is that you have to have a general digitalization of data, which has to do with the general public sector, which has to be digitalized. And all these data, which are gathered in private and public clinics, in hospitals, by private offices, they have to be digitalized and stored and then monitored in order to be actually used in the field of artificial intelligence, which means that some other steps have to be actually taken before we reach the final point where they are used. This means that you must guarantee also the interconnectivity of all these databases and the interoperability, which demand a very great effort and very skilled professionals. And there we come to the other issue, to have skilled people who have been reskilled and upskilled, because what a doctor has learned 20 years or even 10 years ago is actually not what is needed today in the field of practicing healthcare with artificial intelligence. So we are in a process where we have to live with all these new possibilities and with all these challenges, and to adjust our legal and procedural and administrative system in order to be able to cope with them. And of course, one major problem is what a doctor does and what a patient understands, because the main relation between doctors and patients, which come from the Hippocratic days, is the relation of trust. If a doctor actually consults artificial intelligence instruments, then what will be his or her decision? He is not allowed, under any circumstances, to claim that I have reached this or that decision based on artificial intelligence. He might consult artificial intelligence, but the final decision is in his or her hands. And the patient is allowed and actually has the right to know if that or this decision is based on artificial intelligence, which is a very crucial point, because artificial intelligence might be like something like a black box. Nobody knows how this or that result is actually obtained. And this is the main issue, that one should be able to say that this is the person who was responsible for this information to come into the system, and these are that pieces of information. Because what actually is desired is that you have non-biased artificial intelligence. This is the most crucial point, and as we heard from the previous panel, one of the gentlemen who was sitting here said that artificial intelligence is actually an organism, and like a living organism, it has its prejudices, it has its biases. It does not decide absolutely, if we might think so, absolutely independently. So one has to be very, very careful how to guarantee that these artificial intelligence systems work in an unbiased way, and this is particularly important in the field of health, where you have to know that all the data that have been gathered are data which use representative quotas and not quotas that come from a specific field of from a specific part of the population, only from white people, only from black people, only from people of that region or from other region. All these are issues that have to be dealt with, and we have to be vigilant. And all these issues are actually presented in this opinion that the National Committee for Bioethics and Technoethics has already published, and now we are working on another opinion about artificial intelligence in the field of education, which will be read in about after some months, and where we deal with some other issues which are also very important in that other sector. And in general, I think that what the public sector has to do is not only to proceed with adjustment of the system and of the publishing of opinions, but also with trying to understand what will be the results in the future. And this Foresight Committee, where Mrs. Kokiou is the General Secretary, is one of these instruments. And in general, we think that what we should proceed are actually parliamentary work that is undertaken by parliamentary committees, which should examine all of these future challenges and future possibilities, either by means of technology assessment, which happens in many, many parliaments. In the United States, the Office of Technology Assessment was the first to introduce that kind of procedure, and where all future challenges have been studied, and then this has been actually adjusted in many European parliaments. In United Kingdom, it's the Parliamentary Office of Science and Technology, and similar offices at the French Parliament, and other offices at the German Parliament, and all these offices have as their task to give information to the members of the Parliament about future challenges. And this is actually a way in order to give the members of the Parliament input in order to be able to decide when all of these issues are mature to come to parliamentary decision to become laws. And one of the most successful instruments, in my opinion, are the committees for the future, which already operate in 3 countries, in Finland, in Lithuania, and in Iceland, and which have as their own mission to gather information about issues that might be of interest tomorrow, and to prepare to give food for thought to the parliamentarians so that they can elaborate the respective pieces of legislation in the future. It is not something that happens from one day to another, but also Rome was not built in one day. Thank you.
And it's true that Rome wasn't built in a day. Thank you for a thorough analysis on the opinion you issued. And also, since this panel is on a future section, it's important to talk a little bit about the future and what can be done. And let's now touch another area of artificial intelligence. One could say that with the dominance of large digital platforms, technology is challenging even democracy. So we need to protect users from illegal content, especially now that we are approaching elections. We have European elections, we have the US elections, other countries have had elections and are having. So how can we ensure protection, and what is companies like Google going to do in this direction? Eugenia.
Okay, let me just start by taking a big breath, trying to digest all the things we just heard from the Dr. Huar, which are indeed very, very interesting. And if you can allow me one very short comment what we've heard. is that it's the role, exactly because it all ends up to policymakers and to parliamentary work, it is of crucial importance to educate these people on what this technology is, what is at stake. So it needs a lot of work from many of us, and scientists and companies and policymakers, and it has to be collective, and it has to be massive, and it has to happen very fast. And one other comment is that congratulations for this study, and I'm so happy that you actually printed it.
Yes, because
I still read in paper.
Yeah.
So
we have some copies. It's full on our website,
So
and it's soon going to be in English as well for
Thanks.
English speakers too.
So one point to reply to your question is that initially technology is not threatening anyone by itself. It's in the hands of humans, and for example, misinformation that you've already touched on with your question has always been there. It's not because of technology that we have misinformation. What has changed is the extent that we see it, the speed that it is spreading, that it has a power to transform into beliefs that stay within our society and create more biases, more prejudice, hate even, or lead to false decisions. So this is, and as we rely more and more to technology to take decisions, and as we rely more and more to what we learn and hear out there in this universe we call the internet, then we can understand that it is also very important to find a way to control not only information, but how to make sure that people have the right tools to take the right decisions. So, at Google, especially as we go towards elections, we were very concerned with phenomena of misinformation that are spreading. Lately, we are taking a couple of initiatives that I believe are quite interesting. One is, working with the news industry and fact checkers extensively in Europe. We created a news fund to support news organizations working with the biggest media houses across Europe, and we are mobilizing fact checkers to help us actually protect the elections from misinformation. And this is active. It is an ongoing work, and it's going to be very, very intensive as we move towards the European elections. It is a huge effort, and again, it highlights the need of different partners to work together in order to have a result and to have a success. The second is that we are moving from a technique that we worked on in the previous years and we piloted in certain countries, which we called debunking, to what we now call pre-banking. So basically it's a very widespread campaign. We will localize it in Greece, hopefully next month. And it consists of introducing to the public, educating of the main, let's say, misinformation techniques that are out there, like scapegoating, assassination, for example, of character, etc., etc. So we basically introduce these terms. We explain with very, very simple examples what it is, so that, when you see it happening, you can recognize it, you can identify it, so you don't buy it.
Which is the most important.
Which is the most important. So again, education, again, we rely on news publications, on media to spread it, to spread the campaign. And again, we hope that it can create a positive impact.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Because we don't have almost any time left, if someone wants just to make a quick statement of closing, otherwise I will thank you all, and we will release our audience for their next event. One comment. Okay, very, very brief.
Yes.
Ms. Dr. Kriari.
Yes, thank you.
Not like your speech before,
Yes.
please.
Given that we are a 4/5 ladies panel,
Yes, we
allow
are.
me to comment that it would be to the general benefit if we would encourage young women to develop their skills and potential to artificial intelligence. I think that as societies we should only profit if more women would be concerned with STEM, science, technology and mathematics. And
True.
I think that we should underline, especially at this panel, that we expect that in the future, in the near future, not in the long distance future, that more young ladies will develop their brains and their initiative to this very, very
Indeed, and it's going to be
potential
very,
field.
very important. Thank you very much.
Well,
Thank you, everyone.
oh, sorry. I just want to make one quick comment since I'm the odd man out here, so to speak. We actually, the reason I'm up here is we had another female expert from the United States who couldn't come. So we tried to make it
True.
and worked with Simeon to try to make it an all-female
It would
panel.
have been an all-female panel. True.
And my daughter is a civil engineer at Northwestern, so I'm trying to do what you're telling us. So
thank you.
thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Okay.